All right. So, we are live streaming here from 1 Million Cups Columbus. So, we've got a special presentation from a past presenter. So, with Paul Perkins. So, we are all in practicing our social distancing and all in our separate own quarantine places. So, Paul, welcome to the 1MC Virtual Columbus. Thanks for joining us. And thanks for being on the line and chatting about where you're at now with things. So, welcome.
No, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Happy to be here, or at least
So,
virtually be here.
right, right. Well, and it looks like you presented last April. So, this is almost exactly 1 year around, and I'm sure things have stayed exactly the same as they were last year, right? I mean, we're facing the same things, new world, new challenges. So I'm sure you've adapted, made some pivots and everything. But
Right.
George, I think you're going to pull up the original slide deck here that Paul gave us last year, and why don't you just walk us through where you were last year, this time of April, and what you were focused on? What you had presented with Orion Electronics Company was the idea of a widescreen phone and going after the India market, from what I remember.
Correct.
So, all
Yeah.
right, slide deck's up. Go ahead, and floor is yours, Paul.
Yeah. Well, first, once again, thank you guys the initial opportunity about a year ago in April, and bringing me back for a second time, just to kind of give you an update on where we are. First, I just want to give a basis. We do have some co-founders who are in China, and so if you guys can send some good energy out to them, seems like things are chilling out their way, and hopefully it can reverse and send some energy back to us now that we're going through it and everything too. So yeah, so just a quick overview. So a lot of things have changed. I don't like the word change. I like the word progress. A lot of things have progressed, in this past year. And while our initial focus, was developing a affordable and eco-friendly smartphone for the Indian market, due to some alignment. Um, I don't want to say issues, but due to some our ability to be in line with investors and just understanding our market a lot better and our strategy. We've had to go through some pivots and whatnot, but as a quick overview of what we were working on, so we had developed this idea or vision called the Internet of Us, which is really simple. It's just the concept of using mobile technology and sustainable thinking to target and solve remediate real world problems. And so, like I said, initially, our our initial product was to develop a smartphone for the Indian market, and then progress into other um, products within that ecosystem. So really, you can think of Orion as, I like to call it, like, imagine if Apple and Samsung actually created products that could help people or solve problems for them. Um, and so, eventually our goal is to have, potentially hundreds of different types of products and services under this one umbrella and ecosystem. And initially, that was going to start with the smartphone. And so you can see that smartphone here. And yeah, George, you can really just kind of fly through these, and I'll just kind of give a quick overview of those. So uh, these are just kind of some other things about why India. Actually, India is going to sell about 160 million smartphones this year alone. So the market is still growing tremendously. That's an 8% increase from last year that they're going to do those sales. And so we haven't completely moved away from our focus in the Indian market, but I'm glad that we can kind of talk about where we are now. So um, yeah, I mean, pretty much that's a quick overview of where we were, and now where we're pivoting to is a lot more exciting. And so to get down into the nitty gritty of it, the reality was is that no one was going to invest in us $1 million without having a working smartphone in our hands. The catch 22 to that is we needed $1 million to build a smartphone.
Seems to be the case for a lot
Right.
of things. Yeah.
And we spoke with some of the top and met with some of the top investors in the game, from Brian Dixon at Kapor Capital to um, so many different firms, and went to many different tech conferences, and we really dived in and trying to find our investor that we can get in bed with, and no one really liked our bed the way that we were making it, and so the feedback we would get was that, hey, we don't really do hardware, or we don't really do international markets, or hey, we don't do both hardware or international markets. And I was like, well, that's kind of what we're doing. So we had a lot of trouble with alignment there, and so instead of fighting that fact, we started to listen a lot more, and granted, um, I can take this on myself. I was very stubborn. I had to be told no a lot of times in order for me to actually believe that no was the answer at that moment in time. But I think that's the process that a lot of tech CEOs, or just a lot of entrepreneurs in general, will. That's the process you have to go through. And when you have a vision and you have a certain way that you think things are supposed to play out, until you know that there's no opportunity for those things to play out, you're going to keep fighting for it. And so that's kind of where we were. And my team followed me down that spiral to get there. But at the bottom of that kind of pit of no's, we found a pivot to something that was already in our ecosystem, but not necessarily where we thought we were going to start. And so, stepping away from the smartphone and Orion, we had to think about what was our true value, and what did Orion really stand for, and why did we start this company. And it wasn't so much about the smartphone. And I would just explain to people a lot of times as though it wasn't about the smartphone. That was just our first product, or as we envisioned, our spearhead to get into the marketplace. But taking a few steps back, we understood that it really didn't matter what product we entered the marketplace with. It's just a matter of getting a product into the marketplace and then using that as leverage to then grow from there and create more products. For instance, Samsung started with microchips, and now they have thousands of products, in their line, from household, products to obviously the smartphones that we use every day, and so on and so on. And so, kind of looking at my idols and our leaders, and and how they attack the market, we said, okay, well, what's our most definite route, and or not so much our most definite route, but what's the more defined route, and something that aligns a lot better with the investors that we're connected with. And so, with that being said, we took the time to focus on a different product, and that is a dockless electric bike sharing application for underrepresented communities. And so, with the understanding that we have companies like Uber, Lyft, Bird, Line, and all these different ride share and micromobility companies coming into play in the past 3 years. Um, it's been a large opportunity for not only them to capitalize on an underserved market, but for people who are in those markets to be able to benefit. But unfortunately, the people who are in most need of those devices and of those opportunities are still being left out of using them because they simply just can't afford them. The average scooter ride is about $3.50. The average Uber is a minimum of $5, and the average Metro ride is about $2.75. And so, if you think about
Mm.
the millions of Americans who are making, maybe $300 or less every single week, some, a month, but we'll stick to some that are making about $300 a week. If you think that they have to pay a minimum of about $50 a week just to get to and from work or to and from school, I say, well, how can we help solve that problem so that they can then use that money for something else? And so I think we can get 1 million people to save $100 a month. This is potentially $100 million going back into our economy. And that's simply just off of them not having to pay to get to work, for transportation to get to work or to get to school. And so, um, really, that's our focus right now. And so, this past year, we were able to partner with a Chinese manufacturer. So, backtrack a little bit, the story gets a little exciting. Um, Back in July, I quit my $70,000 a year job at Turner Construction, to focus fully on this pivot and to dive in 100%, which was a really hard decision. Let me tell you, with nearly 100,000 of student loans, that was not an easy decision to make. But I knew it was a valuable one, and the same week that I quit Turner, the next day, I flew back to Beijing. And within a month, we had a partnership with the electric bike manufacturer. And currently, we are working on getting our first sample bike from them. Obviously, with all the current situation, in the world, it's not been the easiest, task right now. But basically, we're just being patient with that. But the great thing is that we're really confident in this pivot, and we've been getting a lot of traction, not only in Columbus, but also in Cincinnati. Here in Columbus, we've been meeting with Smart Columbus. We've met with Morpsey. We have some connections to Coda and a lot of different places. And so, really, the way that we look to be different than Lime and Bird, outside of it being electric bikes, is the fact that we're going to target those people who are in those underrepresented markets, or people who don't have those accesses. And so, for example, we have a business to business model that allows us to partner with different corporations or educational institutions. And basically, these institutions would pay us a nominal fee, monthly or yearly or whatever we, contract with them. And in order to provide free access to their students or employees for them to use the bikes. And so, I think about people who might live a mile or 2 miles away from the nearest bus stop, and they have to walk to that bus stop every single day. And if you miss the bus here in Columbus, you're going to be waiting another hour, or who knows how long you'll be waiting, for that bus. And so, I say, how do we get that? How do we help those people with that first mile connectivity, and then also that last mile connectivity, and not have them pay for it out of their pockets up front? But a corporation like, I think about the janitors who work for Nationwide, or, the different city officials that we have, that are like helping clean our streets and things of that nature, et cetera, et cetera. I think about the thousands of employees that Kroger has that are under the age of 16, who can't legally even drive. How do they get to work? Why should they have to pay their little money that they're making just to get to work, on transportation? And so, our play is much more from an economic development standpoint versus, a hey, these scooters are cool. Let's ride around on these things and cause different types of hazards, and for different people. And so, that's really where we are right now. And so, kind of pivoting from the smartphone, we haven't completely thrown the smartphone off the table. It's just a realization that, hey, we can work on multiple products at one time, but let's really key in and focus on the one that we think can really give us leverage, and put us into a really get us into this marketplace and into the conversation, so that we can build more products, to solve some of the problems. We have products in our lineup that I think could help us right now in the situation that we're going through. And it's hurting me to not have the money to create those products because we don't, you know what I mean? Just because we haven't been able to go through those steps right now. And so right now, kind of, I kind of explained some of our recent traction. We went through a couple accelerators in the past year. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the new chip accelerator. But we went through them. That was a really good time, and it helped us. Like I said, we have the memorandum of understanding with our manufacturer, and really our next steps is just going through now a pre-seed round, and so us when we need to raise about $2 million over the next 6 months is our goal. But right now our focus is just securing a pre-seed round of 250,000, and that's going to go towards purchasing some of the first bikes, obviously finishing development of our app, and we're doing some really cool things, with that, and wanting to work with the city. Like a quick, I wish I could show you the PDF, but one of the cool things that we have is these things that you call hot zones. And so basically, instead of just allowing the bikes to be, thrown anywhere on the streets, we would identify areas with the city that we determine as zones that the bikes can safely be returned. And so basically, unless the bikes are in one of these zones, they will be able to be locked or unlocked. So it'll be a way to be able to control it so that you don't see, you see how you can see scooters in the Scioto River or, thrown around in your front yards or wherever they might be. Basically, it would be a way to prevent that. And then also, we partner with small businesses to be able to provide incentive-based rewards. So the more you return your bikes to these hot zones that are the small businesses can give out certain discounts, like like maybe 10% off coffee or something like that. And so that's another way that we plan to stimulate some of the small business economy is just simply by creating foot traffic for them through our bikes in our hot zone system. And so, like I said, it's a lot more thoughtful than what Lime Bird and Lyft are doing on a ground level. We're not just trying to make money. I don't believe we can do that in the 21st century. We really have to solve problems and then make money off of solving those real problems. And so, really, that's our focus right now and where we are.
Gotcha. Okay. So, well, thank you very much for the update there. That's it's like you said, it's not a change. It's progress from everything we do in
Right.
entrepreneurship. We learn through stuff. I heard a couple things in there. So, one, so it sounds like you went through New Chip, which for those that aren't familiar is an accelerator out of Austin, Texas, run by a
Hmm.
company that is doing. Um, it's actually my buddy Ryan's company, doing
Okay, nice.
examples of crowdfunding, right? So they put it's kind of like I always call it Tinder for crowdfunding. So because you can swipe right, swipe left of crowdfunding deals that you'd like to invest at, and Ryan kicked out an accelerator program. So um, that going through that was something that was that a 10 week accelerator.
Yeah, 10 weeks.
Okay. So that forced you to. So you did it around this concept with the e-bikes and um, building the business model around that.
What's crazy is we went in with the smartphone model and then we came out um so it was kind of we were going through that transition all at the same time as we were going into the accelerator. Um and so we kind of went in with our base concept and vision of like, hey, this is what we want to create products, and then by the end of it, we were fully focused on the e-bikes and that pivot. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so it served its purpose then, right? Pushes you through the model and allows you to make adjustments and then focus on that new model.
No, yeah, I think we learned a lot, and those guys are very intelligent. They don't waste their time, and they're very straightforward about their process, and more so than that, they believe in their process, and I think that gave a lot of confidence to not only me, but I'm sure a lot other the entrepreneurs that were in the cohort. So yeah, I highly recommend it. Just you gotta have the money to pay for
Right. Now,
it.
you said you did you do another accelerator as well, or just that one?
Yeah, no, yeah. So we did. I don't know if you're familiar with Founders Gym. Founders Gym. Yeah, so we went through them as well. We did Founders Gym actually first, and then New Chip later on in that year.
Gotcha. Okay. So well, and the other thing, so you're it sounds like you're focused Columbus and Cincinnati. You've got a global team that has experiences in all different things. Are you still looking overseas for market expansion?
Yeah, so like I said, we haven't done the smartphone. So basically, we had to rethink our approach to the smartphone. The fact is, we're not going to be able to build our own out the gate. And so, what I like to say is, we're taking the Chinese model and using someone else's, kind of already built one, kind of remanufacturing that into our own device. Um, and going from that route versus trying to build our own from ground up. And I mean, which is the beauty of Android. It's open source, so you don't have to technically build a smartphone as long as you got one that works. And so we're kind of going through that process, now.
Gotcha.
Um,
Hey, Paul, I've got a
yeah,
question for you from Facebook. I think it's from Ben, Midwest Ben, 1 Million Cups
yes.
regional representative. Uh, the question is, when you're passionate about the initial concept and have to pivot, how can one remain just as passionate with the new approach?
I think that's the most important thing is staying passionate. I think the pivot factor is that shows how passionate you are. Are you willing to um, essentially not so much turn away from your initial idea, but um, think of a new way to get there. I always like to say that the vision hasn't changed for Orion. It's still the same vision. It's just the strategy to get to that vision has to change sometime. It's war at the end of the day. You know, um, the vision is to win, and if you're passionate about winning, then you're going to do whatever it takes to win, and that's kind of where we're at.
And it sounds like your core intent kind of remained the same. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's always been about providing a service where there was a void, right? So it sounds like that core desire is still being maintained with this pivot, and it doesn't preclude you from taking it to the next level, going back to that original idea later.
Correct. Yeah, and you know what? It's actually we kind of changed a part of our mission statement. We went from focusing on consumers in international markets to focusing on consumers in underrepresented markets. And I think that gave us a lot broader vision and understanding. So, like in America, there's not a smartphone hurdle, right? But there is a transportation problem. And so, for us, we don't have the hurdle of the smartphone like we have in India, where we needed to sell people smartphones first in order to build an ecosystem. People in America already have those smartphones, but they don't have a way to get to work. And so I was like, well, let's see if we can create a way for them to get to work and get to school, without them having to pay for it. Or you know what I mean? It became our vision became a lot more broad, and I'm glad that it kind of played out that way because I think it was going to help us in the long run be able to create more products that can solve more problems for people and not be so focused on the international market.
Sure, sure. So another question from Facebook: what's an upcoming hurdle that you need to overcome, and how do you plan on making it happen?
Well, the current hurdle is everyone's hurdle, I think, right now, with the current situation in the world. And so, with that, I won't leave you to that. I'll think a little bit more in depth, but just with that situation, it's just being patient until things kind of figure it out. But our number one hurdle has kind of always just been really resources, capital resources, and just infrastructure resources and anything that can just really help us grow. And so, I mean, really, the way to overcome it, our focus is just to keep going out there and keep connecting with people, keep growing, and um, just don't stop, basically, until we get what we want. And that's kind of where I am right now, until I see my bikes from the street. And we're not stopping. And even then, I need to cover all of America if I can.
So what made you choose bikes over, say, another scooter or some other prevalent type of micro transportation format out there? And can you talk a little bit about the design ideas that you have for this initial prototype?
Yeah. Um, my background is in urban planning. I know George may have discussed that. For those of you who don't know, I graduated from the University of Cincinnati in 2015 for urban design, and I actually had the pleasure of designing the red bike system in Cincinnati, or helping design the red bike system while I was in school. So a lot of research was really done, just about why bikes are a better travel option than any other travel option. One is because um, the adoption, how do you say that? Like track is a lot lower than any other. I think like a lot more people understand how to ride bicycles than scooters. But more importantly, bikes are safer, they're faster, they're more reliable, they're more durable, and over time, I see them being a lot more sustainable than scooters. Personally, as an urban planner, I don't think scooters will be around within the next 2 to 3 years. Personally, what I think. But bikes are a part of human society and civilization and have been a major part of our transportation for thousands of years. And I think that they're going to, continue, or not thousands, but hundreds of years. And I think that they're going to continue to be that. Um, and now we have the beautiful pleasure of electrifying those bikes. And more so, the legislator is coming into play from our states as well. And so, what really put us into the game is Ohio passed a bill, Ohio House Bill 250, back in March of last year, that excluded electric bikes from being used on the streets and not having, and they don't have to have vehicle registration. And so this allowed for the option for co-shared electric bikes. And this is why you start to see like the bike share companies start to provide electric bike options, is because legally they're allowed to now. And so, um, it's a combination of things that have kind of all pulled us into why bikes are the right way to go. Yeah.
Gotcha. So, obviously, a lot of people going after this segment and everything. It sounds like you've got a little bit of a different outlook and a different model. Having that hot zone with the small business thing, I think, is a very intuitive and collaborative possibility for increasing market awareness, reach, and having a benefit. So that economic development approach, that's not unique to Columbus. It's not unique to Cincinnati. I mean, it is something that's not only probably national but international. But what's the strategy for that type of growth? I mean, is it going in and having cities look at this for analysis and possibly subsidizing, or is it that small business
Mhm.
play, or both?
It's really eating the elephant one chunk at a time, and so we know that the cities and the educational institutions are going to be a long, elongated process, and so our focus are apartment buildings and complexes and co-working spaces out the gate, and then as we gain leverage, and so we want to refrain from the pay per ride model initially, just focus completely on the business to business model and then grow from there to where we can actually provide the pay per ride model. And so our pay per ride model, for instance, like I told you, that the average scooter ride is about $3.50. For us, it would be $1 for the first 45 minutes and then $5 for 24-hour access after 45 minutes. And so in order to provide that affordable rate, you have to be able to subsidize that price somehow. And so that's to the business model. And so really our focus is to kick that off in a big way, sign on as many companies as we can, and then be able to, partner with the educational institutions. Like, we're already speaking to the University of Cincinnati and Ohio State, but those are going to be very long conversations and going to take some time to
Sure.
kind of work through. Yeah. So right now our focus is just uh, not even really small businesses, but more so just apartment buildings and complexes, and then co-working spaces, places where people definitely need these out the gate, and then I think that would give us the ability to go in to these underrepresented neighborhoods in a much better, more effective way. Um, Once we kind of have some backing and some leverage, so
So that's a good
yeah.
segue to a question that we had from Facebook World again. And it references the nationwide sales goals and have you hired a sales team? And if so, how have you aligned their motivation? And if not, how are you keeping the funnel full? So in this instance, it looks like the people that you're trying to sell to right now are the businesses, the B2B sales. So can you talk
Hmm.
to that a little bit?
What was the question?
Yeah, the question was, have you hired a sales team? And if so, how have you aligned their goals? And if not, how are you keeping the funnel full?
Gotcha. Yeah, so right now I'm the sales team. Uh, and that's the part of what we're raising this pre-seed round for, is so that we can hire some extra people that we need in order to kind of move through these ranks. But I mean, really, it's just a matter of getting a client, sheet and kind of going through those ranks. We've already been speaking with a few clients. We've been waiting until we get our sample bite so that we can give the full fledged, presentation to these clients and really take them through the whole process. But really, that's where we are right now. So eventually, yes, we will hire a sales team in the near future, but it's just going through that process right now.
So, um, yeah, this current situation, obviously, as we've already alluded to, it's universal. So industry agnostic, company agnostic, but as something that is
Right.
looking to bring people together, where we're talking about social distancing. How as an entrepreneur, I mean, you evaluating this, and do we ride this wave? What's your mindset, and outside of being the patient and just a waiting game, what's your thought about it?
About just where we are currently, I guess.
Yeah, well, and just how
Or
I mean, so you obviously, I mean, it kicks back timelines, and so it
right,
gives you a chance to, focus in and hone on what you really have to do, but you can't be out necessarily in front of customers. I mean, so you've got virtual chats and all that, but you've got a deadline
right.
or a
Okay.
goal, 250K seed round, and then launching. bikes, which is really a social, setting, and we've got a nation almost going
Right.
into lockdown, but gives you some time to focus on stuff. But so just that kind of outlet.
Yeah, no.
And
Um, yeah, we are figuring that out. I think at this point, because we were, I'm hearing things that they might close down some of the ports and this and that, and you know, a part of doing that waiting game. It's actually funny because years ago when we were doing the risk management for the smartphone, someone had mentioned to like, well, what if all the factories in China just shut down? And I was, why would China? I was like, why would China ever do that?
right,
It's like that's never going to happen in China. I was like, of course, a whole plague will happen. Why not? So, um, we are playing it by ear. Like I said, we have two co-founders who are still in Beijing. So obviously, our most urgent thing is just to make sure that they're safe and good and that they're okay. And then obviously for ourselves here, that's kind of the most important thing. And if we have to wait, then that's just kind of where we are. But I know that it'll eventually will work itself out, and it is pushing on our timelines and deadlines a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's like this is what I tell every entrepreneur that or either person that I discuss with or that I mentor is that you're on your own time. No one's forcing you to do anything, and you just when you decide to be an entrepreneur, you decide to take control over your time, and so um, things are going to happen when they're supposed to happen. This is kind of what I believe, and as long as you keep working and you stay persistent, it's going to work out. So I'm trying to keep that faith, basically, right now.
yeah, make your own destiny.
Right, and exactly Napoleon Hill, the master of my fate, captain of my soul.
There you go. So on that, and that's, I mean, these are times for the analysis times to focus in on your core competencies and really push that forward. But then also, the
Yeah,
evaluation of where the market shifts and watch and being able and nimble, ready for that pivot, which you've always already obviously done a little bit, and it's again like you said, not a focus off of things. It's just you have to prioritize, right? So I mean, you need that cue and
right,
that launch into a market that allows you to expand upon your offerings. Once you've got traction and a path to revenue, now it's uh, throw all your skill set and your guys' abilities at it. So
I got a
George,
patiently waiting, man, patiently waiting,
yep,
I got a
persistently working.
I got another question from Facebook from Ben McDougal. First, he said that he loves the sentiment that you mentioned earlier. The Master of the Fate, I believe, is the one he was talking about. But he has three questions,
Yeah,
actually four. But the three questions, I'll just do one at a time, so it's not
let's
overwhelming.
do it.
All right. So, what is
No,
your
yeah, I'm
cost
here
for
for
each
all the
setup,
questions.
and your cost for new customer acquisition?
Cost for each setup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so right now we're working on a 3 month pilot program, and it can either start from 5 bikes or 10 bikes. 5 bikes at 2,500 for the first 3 months, or 5 bikes for 5,000, and then after that 3 month pilot, we have the ability to to renegotiate that contract, and basically it would just be an extension of another 3 months or 6 months or 12 months or whatever it might be. And so right now our focus is just a 3 month pilot program,
Mm-hmm.
and that 2,500 and that 5,000 would get the bike set up. It would allow us to set up the hot zones for that particular business. Basically, we would provide a login code for each of those students or employees or whatever the institution might be, and whoever they might be providing the bikes to. We'll set all that up for them. We manage to operate the bikes. A big thing for companies is who takes the liability. technically no one takes the liability because the user signs over their liability in the app, but we would have insurance to cover that part of it. And then from a customer acquisition, really it's fairly outside of marketing, which is going to be the biggest kind of spend for us. Doing Facebook ads and paper ads. Um, it's fairly inexpensive to just walk into an apartment complex and talk to the general manager and present this to them. And then it's just a matter of if they think it is plausible or not, or if they think it's something that they want or not. And so, really, that's more of the approach that we're taking is more of a guerrilla approach, marketing approach, and saying, just making these connections with these general managers or the main OM, for some of these businesses, whether it be a co-working space or whatever it might be, and going about it that route. So we don't have it worked down to the exact dollar amount right now because we're still working through that. But the approach that we're taking right now is basically, you know, whatever it costs for us to get gas to go see, go pull up to these apartment buildings and everything. Yeah.
Okay. The second question of that series is with your efforts to raise capital, how long have you been building this company and what's your paid traction?
You said paid traction.
Yeah, so like how much, I believe it's asking how much have you made so far in the effort to raise capital?
Gotcha. Yeah. So, we were founded in Beijing in 2013. Um, and I was still in school at that time. And so we really became an official Delaware corporation in August of 2015. And so I say, we've been in operation about 5 years or so. between 2018 and 2019, we raised about $40,000 in our friends and family round, and that's kind of been the most revenue that we've raised so far. And so this is going to be our largest round that we've had to raise. Going forward with this, and so yeah.
Which is a great segue to the last question they had, which was, what will you do with the 250,000 seed round?
Yeah, so like I said, it's mostly going to hiring necessary individuals, finishing the development of our app, purchasing bikes. There's some logistical things that we have to set up, like hiring a maintenance and management team. So one of the cool things that we're doing because as you see, like Lyman Bird, they have like their chargers that they go around, and it's like they have like a truck full of like 50 scooters that they just throw into the back of the truck, and it looks like hell, honestly. And it's a very unsustainable model, and a model that's not very safe as well for people to drive around with that many scooters. But and then they just take them to their homes. Who knows what their homes look like? And what these where these scooters are actually being charged and how they're being taken care of. And so to avoid all this madness, we have what we call the Orion Universe team, or which is just basically our maintenance team. And basically, our goal is to initially hire college students, high school college students. We'll see about the high schoolers, but basically they will be given uh, a a service van that's basically a mechanic shop on wheels, and be able to they would be tasked with managing the disbursement of the bikes. The bikes have proximity sensors in them, so if they fall over, we can see that in our back end on our application. If bikes are falling over, they will be tasked with going to pick those bikes up, moving them into the right location. If there's areas that are surging for requests, they would be tasked with taking bikes to those areas. If there's reports of a bike having a malfunction or a missing part or something that needs to be fixed, they will have the ability to go directly to those bikes and fix them. The cool thing is the batteries for the bikes are not only self-recharging, but they're also swappable. And so on these vans, um, we'll have charging. We'll have batteries that are going to be charging, and so they say, hey, we can see in the app that this bike is dying. They can go to that bike and swap out the battery. So that 250 is really just going to setting up all those operations and getting us to a point to where we can put ourselves in a position to scale, raise the rest of that 1.75 after you raise that 250, and then go on to hopefully raise a large Series A round within the next like 12 to 18 months as a goal.
Awesome, awesome. All right, I've got two more. One is from Des Moines,
Yep.
Iowa, and one is from Topeka, Kansas. So I'll combine
Nice.
these
I
two,
like it.
hit you with them, and then I'll turn it back over to you,
That's early
Steve.
morning out. That's
It
early morning
is.
out there.
It is. Yeah, they're getting ready for their 1MC. So after that, I'll turn it over to you, Steve, and then
All
if you don't
right.
mind, I'll do some final words at the end there, just about the way forward with our presentations being virtual. So the two questions are: is there a way to monitor permits to find out what communities are looking into this type of urban planning, and then proactively reach out to them? So, is there a way to kind of keep an eye on, who's looking for this kind of thing and reach out to those guys? And then, what are some of the new target markets that you referenced a little while ago?
Okay. Yeah. So right now we're working with um, I don't like to. I would say Smart Columbus is technically an NGO, but not really. It's a nonprofit. But we're working with entities in Columbus and in Cincinnati to help us get access to those municipalities and different smaller cities within our region that might be more willing to accept this than per se the whole city of Columbus or the whole city of Cincinnati out the gate. Cincinnati especially, they have hundreds of municipalities, it seems like. And so that's really our goal. We're working hand in hand with the Hamilton County Development Center down on the Xavier's campus, and they're really engaged with this and willing to help us, kind of get our 3 month pilot program out there, not only to businesses but cities. So we are spreading our wings and trying to encapsulate all those people who may be interested and kind of going through that line. But like I said, I think that's going to be a elongated process, and this is something that can make money the first day that it's on the ground. And so we're trying to look for businesses that we can sign on and within 30 days, be able to have these bikes in operation and then be able to use that as leverage to then get bigger clients like municipalities and cities, et cetera, et cetera. I see this as an application for Children's Hospital, for man, like obviously I already spoke about Kroger, and which we have, some connections potentially to Kroger. We've been speaking with 3CDC down in Cincinnati as well, because they have all these street cleaners, and they were like, "Hey, man, the number one problem for the people who clean our streets is literally them just getting to work on time." And I was like, "Well, I have a solution for that. That is very inexpensive for 3CDC to pay for." Um, but yeah, so I think it's going to be a process to work to those entities, but I think that it's all possible, and I know that our competitors really aren't thinking in that way because they're not making any deals really in that space, and so I think that is a major opportunity for us, and hopefully we can kind of capitalize on it before anyone. And then what was the second question? Sorry.
I think you actually kind of tackled them both. So, what were the new target markets?
Okay.
And you mentioned some of
Okay.
those different markets. And the first one was just: is
Okay.
there any way to see which municipalities or government agencies are actually looking for this type of thing that you can that's publicly listed somewhere? kind of like the SBR grants or SIPR grants.
Like, are they put? I would say, are they putting out like RFQs or something like that? You
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I am, real in tune with that, and a lot of cities are putting out, excuse me, transportation RFQs and RFPs, but um, it's really hard for a for-profit kind of company to be able to necessarily align completely with those RFQs sometimes, and so because a lot of times they want you to build something for the city and like only for them. Um, Whereas obviously that's not technically our model. It's more so our goal is to work with the city, and say, hey, we have a product to provide. We just want to not be sued if we put these put these
Right.
on your street. So like right now we're going through the permitting process for Columbus, for the shared mobility devices. And so it's kind of just where we are right now, and going through that process. So yeah.
All right. Well, George, do we have any more Facebook questions out there? If anybody has them, go ahead and ask real quick. And
Please give me all the questions. I love it. Please, I need to get sharp on these. So
We
more
don't
questions
right
the
now,
better.
and we're coming up to the end of the hour anyway. So
yeah.
I'll let you do your thing, Steve, the last cue, and then I'll just close out with our way forward here as an organization.
Okay. Yeah. So, Paul, as you might remember before, we always ask every entrepreneur, what can the community do to help you? So, obviously, awareness and sales and all that goes without saying. But
Hmm.
what are some pain points, or what can outside non-team members do to help Orion in their quest?
Yeah, I mean, this alone is very helpful. So first, once again, thank you guys for this opportunity, and all that you guys do with one MC, and I think it's very powerful just to give entrepreneurs a voice to talk about the things that they're working through. So I think this alone is very helpful. But for us, it's real simple. We are here to serve, people, and we want to align with people who have that mission, and um, in their line, and we can align with them. And that's all we're looking to do is just, we have a very specific, I think, product and route that we're trying to take. And the more help we get along that process, and the more support, the more questions, the more research, whatever it is that, someone thinks can be helpful, it probably will help us. So please don't hesitate to tell us. And and I always tell people, I've never been a billion-dollar tech CEO, but I'm going to figure it out one day. And I know that's going to take a I know it's going to take a team of people, and a lot of resources and a lot of help to get there. And one day we're all going to figure out together. So that's where I'm at right now.
Awesome. Thanks a lot,
All
Paul.
right.
We did have a final comment from Brian Gintz on Facebook that said, "Great to hear and thank you for sharing." So your story is reaching people, and they do appreciate your effort. And to the community that's reached out to join us today, or if you're watching the recording of this, this is going to be the way forward for us for our weekly 9 a.m. on Wednesday presentations. Apologies for being a little bit late today. It's our first run, so we have to, weed out a few technical issues. You know how it goes.
I feel special now. The first one.
But yeah, so come back again next week on Wednesday at 9 a.m. We'll actually start a little bit earlier, and have your questions ready. And again, for those that are watching the recording, go ahead and drop your questions in the comments on Facebook or YouTube, and we will definitely circle back around and answer those questions for you. And we look forward to seeing you and your friends and your family and everyone else that's being forced to stay at home on the next one. Oh, you want to show your card there, Paul? Go ahead and pop that card up there.
Just they're giving Orion vibes.
Awesome. All right, Steve, unless you have anything else, I think we'll close out for today, and we'll see everyone hopefully again next week 9 a.m. on Wednesday.
Yep, it's Brandon Gottlieb with Next Store, which is a way for the crowd and the community to help people that need space find space. So we'll see everybody next week, and thank you very much, Paul, for joining us. So, and thanks, Joyce, for running the behind tech scenes and being able to put us in multiple places at once. So take care, everybody.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it. Thank you guys. See you. 再见, as the Chinese say.
All right. All right. Did we lose him? Did he leave? You still there, Steve? Yeah, I'll just pause the feed. I've got a little outro screen going, and then I'll shut that down here in a few seconds. All right.